Buongiorno, buongiorno.
Good morning to all of you who are here, and also to those who are following us on their phones, on their computers. Here we are. We have wanted this strongly, convinced that we could do it within the safety rules that are imposed by this contingency, without forgetting, however, what our country has gone through, the victims of COVID, the serious economic consequences that many sectors are facing, cinema, audiovisual, culture in general. We have always wanted, if the conditions were favorable, to go on with the International Venice Film Festival in presence, a different festival. As the director, Mr. Barbera, has already explained, it has cost a lot in terms of selection. An international festival, the selection, you will listen to Director Barbera in a while, has not renounced quality nor the number of movies in the official selection and in Orizzonti as well. This is an important sign, I think, and we see this in the expectations abroad as well. This is a sign of recovery. We hope no more stops will follow. I think this is an important sign because this is like a heritage. Those that come after us will avail themselves of. It is like a laboratory, a test of how such an important event can be organized with important numbers and presence. We have collaborated from the very start with all national and local institutions. We organized a table for anti-COVID measures. I will not list them. You will find them in the press release. We are convinced that what we have organized and what we are still organizing will guarantee that all those who take part in this festival, the industry, the viewers, can be totally safe. We will have openings to get in, to have access to the red zone, where the major controls will be made, temperature control. There will be no physical ticket offices. Everything will take place online. We will have the necessary distancing just to speed up the access procedure. We will not keep into account the possibility for relatives to sit close to one another. There will always be an empty seat in the theaters. We hope this will not penalize the pleasure of seeing a movie. This will allow a more rapid access. Seats will be numbered. There will be more points of access to the red zone. There will be contemporary screenings in more theaters. We will have 2 open arenas in Lido so that the number of spectators can be enlarged. One in Lido at Pattinodromo and the other in the Giardini. It is already, the open-air arena in the Giardini is already working with a selection of classic movies that have been restored, not the official titles of the classic section of the Biennale that are being screened, that will be screened in Bologna, but another selection of movies. People are attending the screenings, and they seem to be happy. Somebody asked me, are you proud you're the first? No, we are not. We would have liked the other festivals to take place as well. We did not want to we do not want to face what we have faced, but we are extremely satisfied of what we have done so far. First of all, for the quality of the movies that have been selected, and also because of what we have been able to organize for the safety and security of those who will attend the festival. It is important for us that all the festivals of this Biennale are in presence. We do not want the 100% online event. We have already declared this for both architecture and visual art exhibition. As a new journey, we have produced, under the patronage of the Historic Archive of Contemporary Arts, for the first time in 125 years of history of the Biennale, an exhibition at the Giardini and at the Arsenale that has been curated by the 6 directors of the different sections of the Biennale, because we are convinced that the Biennale is not just exhibitions with a beginning and a final date. What is really important, besides the exhibitions, what is really important is for the Biennale to be a unicum, to be the home of the arts, the home in Venice for contemporary arts, a research project on contemporary art that will never exclude one of the 6 arts we support with the Biennale, which is why cinema, which normally is considered as somehow autonomous from the rest of the Biennale, the film festival is the film festival of the Venice Biennale. It is something that makes it even richer. Allow me to thank the team, the staff of the Biennale. I have met since the beginning of my office. I want to thank Director Barbera, the selection team. Allow me to thank the sponsors, the ministry, for its contribution to the film festival, the Veneto region, the municipality of Venice, and the superintendency of Venice that are providing their essential support. The sponsors, Gégé Lecoutre, Campari, Armani Beauty, MasterCard, RAI, main broadcaster for this festival, supporting it even more actively, if possible. Toyota Lexus, and come to the festival, and I really hope you will enjoy it totally safely and with pleasure. The floor to Director Barbera. Good morning to all those who are here or are with us through the social media to know something about this 77th edition of the Venice Film Festival. My greetings to Lorenzo Mattotti. You see the poster for this year. It is a photograph taken from the official video of the film festival. We have all had to make some exercise to complete this edition of the festival. A few remarks before passing to the list of the movies that will be screened at this festival. The heart of the festival is safe. It is true it will be perhaps a festival with a smaller scale. We have postponed the Sconfini section. Venezia Classici will be hosted in Bologna with the Il Cinema Ritrovato section. We have somehow reduced the number of movies that will be officially invited to Venice, but the heart of the festival is safe. The Venice 77 competition is safe. Orizzonti, with a wide selection of out-of-competition movies, also including the so-called documentaries, plus 2 movies of the Biennale College section that were completed despite the lockdown. There were 2 movies that had to stop the shootings. They will be screened next year in 2021. we have a total of 62 movies plus 15 short movies that will all be screened in the theaters in Lido, in Venice, and Mestre, including the two open-air arenas President Cicutto has just mentioned. Second remark, the number of Italian movies is the same as last year. But as you will see, and I really hope you will all agree with me in the end, the Italian selection is really of a high quality. And this is a good sign for our cinema that is experiencing a happy time despite the stops imposed by the pandemic for its capacity to renew and to propose new stories, abandoning the obsolete models of the past. A third remark. This will not be an autarchical festival because there is an extremely varied program made of movies from all over the world and with no geographical exclusions. Also, countries that are still threatened by the coronavirus. More than 50 countries represented at the festival. Venice will still be a shop window for the best cinema production in the world, also including some of American movies by the majors. One last remark before passing to the list of the movies. Among the different movies sent to the selection, the percentage of movies directed by women is more or less 22.4%, more or less the same percentage as last year. But the percentage of movies directed by women invited to the festival rises to 28.1%, plus 3.1% as against 2019. But in the main competition, Venice 77, the number of movies directed by women is 8 out of 18, all of them chosen because of their quality and not for gender protocols. This is an extremely significant figure. We hope it will characterize the cinema and audiovisual production at international level in the future, to come. Now, the list of the official movies, starting with Biennale College Cinema. 2 movies out of 4 had to postpone the screening. We have 2 films that will take part in the festival. A Spanish movie, El Arte de Volver. El Arte de Volver by Pedro Collantes, and a Finnish movie, Annalena Auro with Fucking With Nobody. We will also have in the Venice VR expanded section a movie produced for VR for this new artistic expression section. We will mention this later. Out of competition, which includes many movies, 10 fiction and 10 non-fiction. Those we defined as documentary in the past, a term which is somehow obsolete. We do no longer want to use this term. Non-fiction movies. The first is, this is Vaillant, the film for Venice VR expanded. The first movie is Sporting Life by Abel Ferrara. We are glad to welcome back Ferrara to Venice. He has moved, he's an American director who has moved to Rome with his wife and his daughter. It was shot in Berlin during the last festival. He was competing with Siberia, his movie. It is a celebration of cinema, of music. Ferrara has a rock band that appears in the movie, and he collaborates with William Dafoe, his alter ego, the interpreter of all his movies. Another pleasant return to Venice is that of the director Alex Gibney. With Crazy Not Insane, he tells the story of Dorothy Otto Lewis, the American criminologist who investigated the mentality of serial killers for her whole life, studying the effects of the different disturbances of personality. Impressive recording of the different interviews she had with famous American serial killers, also during hypnotic tests. Then we have the documentary on Greta by Nathan Grossman. The director has followed the young Swedish activist from her first appearances until she became an iconic figure, the representative of the environmentalist movement with a huge number of followers. Another coming back to Venice is by Luca Guadagnino, Salvatore, Shoemaker of Dreams. He tells the story, the professional and human story of this shoemaker who became the founder of one of the most renowned fashion houses, Italian fashion houses in America. Final account by Luke Holland adds up to the long list of testimonies on the Holocaust. It is, however, intense and original, also when there seems to be nothing more to tell on this incredible tragedy. The painful remark is that the author of this document, a British Jew who devoted his life as an actor and a director to reconstruct the horrors of Nazism, disappeared the 20th of June last at 71 years of age. There is a celebration of Fellini in the year of his 100th anniversary of his birth. We have La Verità sulla Dolce Vita by Giuseppe Pedersoli, the reconstruction of the realization of the masterpiece by Fellini. We thought we knew everything, and this is questioned by the movie by Pedersoli, who is the nephew of Giuseppe Amato, the great producer of the movie. It tells us many things about the Italian cinema of the 1960s that does no longer exist. We have already told a lot about Molecole by Andrea Segre, that will be screened for the pre-opening of the film festival on the 1st of September. Among the many movies that were shot during the lockdown, this movie appeared to us as the most beautiful and the most original and intense. It does not only tell the events of a peculiar time, but it also faces two types of isolation: the isolation in Venice, empty of tourists, and the personal, intimate isolation of the director, reflecting about his relationship with the father. From Brazil, a country in full lockdown, we get a movie, Narciso and Feria, a long interview to Caetano Veloso, the singer, telling about his imprisonment after the unmotivated arrest in 1968 by the military dictatorship that kept power up to 1984. This is an extremely topical movie from my point of view. There is another nice portrait made by Carlo Verdelli on Paolo Conte. Paolo Conte, Via con me, is the title of the movie. Besides the evidence of admiration and love for this beloved Italian chansonnier, the movie is characterized by the generosity of Paolo Conte towards the camera, telling his human and professional adventure with joy and irony that are perhaps among the reasons for his great success. Paolo Conte will be in Venice for a special evening on September the 11th. Then we have the producer, Philippe Jan Rimsha. We met in Venice 2 years ago. with the restored movie, with the restored Lost movie by Orson Welles, The Other Side of the Wind. He's coming back to Venice this year with another unexpected present, the reconstruction of a long, extraordinary interview to Orson Welles with Dennis Hopper while shooting the last movie in Mexico. It is the beginning of the 1970s. The last movie is the Cursed movie by Dennis Hopper, a terrible commercial failure. The conversation among the two, that was originally 6 hours long, has been reduced to less than 2 hours thanks to the editing by the Academy Award Bob Murawski. The last non-fiction movie is City Hall by Fred Wiseman, a new chapter of his fascinating investigation on the institutions that are at the basis of the American society. After Berkeley and the Public Library of New York and the Boston City Hall is the target of the exploration of this director that is 90 years old. And if you think you know everything about the way in which you face the problems in a city like Boston, you will see how the mayor has to take care of safety and security, of firemen, of health, of veterans and aged people. It is an unprecedented research about civic duties and values. Out of competition, fiction movies. We had already announced the opening movie for the festival, Lacci by Daniele Lucchetti. You will then discover its quality on the inauguration on September the 2nd. The closing movie is Lasciami andare by Stefano Mordini, that was shot in Venice last autumn during the exceptional high tide we had in Venice in November. It is a psychological thriller with Valeria Golino, Stefano Accorsi, Maya Sanza, and Serena Rossi. It doesn't hide its references to a cult movie like Don't Look Now by Nicolas Roeg. Out of competition, the movie by Quentin Dupieux, Mandibule, another chapter of his cinema construction, surreal, grotesque, totally unreal, with exhilarating results. The Golden Lion for a lifetime achievement this year goes to Anne Hui, her movie Love After Love, inspired by a novel about the aristocracy in Hong Kong in the 1920s, is extremely refined with the beautiful photography by Chris Doyle. Out of competition, Asandira by Salvatore Mereu. I'd like to say a few words about this movie. Mereu really deserves this. It is his 5th movie that has had to face some problems with production, as is usual for his movies. It should be perhaps in competition if we could have 5 Italian movies in competition. I hope he will not lack the attention he deserves. It is inspired to the novel by Guido Angioni in Sardinia, in a precarious balance between old and new, out of time, with ancient traditions and common nowadays habits. It is a dramatic story that reverses the roles of father and padre padrone, interpreted by Gavino Ledda. And then we have The Duke by Roger Mitchell, the director of Notting Hill. investigating the social comedy Ken Loach style without his political radicalism. It is the story of a taxi driver who, in the 1960s, stole a Goya portrait from the National Gallery for some bizarre reasons you will discover watching the movie, interpreted by Jim Broadbent and Helen Mirren. From Korea, we have Night in Paradise, one of the best gangster movies we have received from that country in recent years. The director, Park Hong-young, is an author who deserves great attention. He's like a craftsman practicing this widespread genre in Korea. He builds complex characters and is extremely effective in his directing. We will listen a lot about him. We will hear a lot about him in the future. I have already mentioned the name of Philippian Rimsha for the documentary of the conversation between Hopper and Wells. He has his third fiction movie in Venice, Mosquito State, which is a curious, difficult to classify work that mixes different genres like science fiction and horror. It is a reflection on contemporary themes like urban isolation, the disease, and the rotten economic financial world. 3 special screenings out of competition, 30 Monedas, the pilot of a series produced by HBO Spain and directed by Alex de la Iglesia. Fantasy, horror, and mystery mixed together in a story that is full of surprises, full of irony, extremely pleasant. Princess Europe by Camille Lotto is the movie realized by the historic collaborator of Bernard-Henri Lévy to document this theatrical tournée that brought this work written and interpreted by Bernard-Henri Lévy all over the world. The documentary will be presented in collaboration with the City of Venice in a special screening at the Misericordia and will be followed by a roundtable on the theme of Europe, on the subject of Europe. You will hear the details later. Omelia Contadina is the title of a short movie that is part of an artist performance realized by Alice Rohrwacher and JR, the famous French artist, a funeral for the disappearance of the country world. And I will stop here not to ruin the surprise. Orizzonti. Some more remarks. We do not only have debut movies, debut films, or unknown directors this year. Together with 7 new directors, this section also includes directors that had their first movie in Venice in the past, Massimo Danolfi and Martina Parenti, The Golden Lion Loved Tears, and then Umberto Pasolini, who got the Best Director award in Orizzonti in 2013 with Still Life. They are loyal to the festival and respect the choices we make, and this is something we really appreciate. As you know, in Orizzonti, we also have a competition for short movies, international short movies. We have 12 movies in competition, 2 out of competition. You see the title in these 2 slides. Allow me to mention the debut movie by Jasmine Trinca, Being My Mom is the title. This is one of the surprises in this competition. And then feature films. The opening movie that will be screened on the 2nd of September is Mila, which means apples in Greek. It is a Greek director, Christos Nikou. He faces a mysterious disease that hits a population, canceling their memory. La Troisième Guerre by Giovanni Aloy is the debut film made in France by this Italian young author who was in Venice with a short movie in 2015. It is the psychological analysis of the pressure a young soldier is subjected to during his task in anti-terrorism surveillance. Milestone by Ivan Ayer comes from India. He directed Sony, the movie that in 2018 was discussed a lot in the Orizzonti section in Venice. This is the story of a truck driver who has lost his young wife. Again, a strong social component that confirms his talent as an observer. 2 Iranian movies in this section. The Wasteland is the first, the debut movie by Hamad Barami, a debut film that is rather unusual for the Iranian cinema, black and white, repetitive movement of the camera, stressing the circular approach of the narration. A factory, a brick factory in the middle of the desert, an employer who does not pay the workers. L'homme qui a vendu sa peau by Kauter Benania is the 4th movie by this Tunisian director. She was in the jury in Venice in 2018. It refers to a real event of a few years ago. It denounces the hypocrisy of the world of contemporary art. Another debut film in Orizzonti, Pietro Castellitto, who has emerged as an actor in many movies, but at his first work as a director, I Predatori, a movie that is eccentric as against the rest of the young Italian cinema, which is normally minimalist, based on narration. Here we have a satiric approach, surprising approach, the courage of going beyond the rules. A really promising debut movie. And then we have a pleasant return to Venice, Gia Coppola, after Palo Alto in 2013. She comes back to Venice with Mainstream, interpreted by Andrew Garfield. The uncontrolled consequences of the influence of the social media on the life of young people today. 4 years after the Golden Lion, she won in Venice in 2016. We have back in Venice Love Diaz with The Woman Who Left, with Gino Span, a criticism to the current Philippine government of President Duterte. And then we have Ismail El Iraqi, who with Zanka Contact tells the story of a rock musician, drug addict, and of a prostitute accompanying him, trying to hide his debts. That refers to Sailor and Lula by Lynch and to the movies by Quentin Tarantino. As you know, in Venice, we are great fan of a couple of documentary producers from Milan, Massimo Danolfi and Marina Parenti. They participated in 2016 with Spira Mirabilis. 4 years later, they come back with their new work, Guerra e Pace. I am glad they are in Orizzonti, although this section is considered less important than the major competition. Les Nuits des Rois of the Ivorian director Philippe Lacoste had participated to the gap financing film market in Venice last year. It is a prison movie that rapidly turns into a tribute to the oral tradition of the African culture, griot, theater, ritual, singing, dance, and magic. It is the only sub-Saharan African movie of this year. From Australia, we have the debut film by Roderick McKay, The Furnace. It is like a Western movie telling about the times when British traders transplanted Afghan, Indian, and Persian camel riders in the Australian outback. Then we have another Iranian movie, Careless Time by Shahram Mokri, the third movie by a director among the most interesting in the new generation of filmmakers in Iran. His debut film, Fish and Cat, had a great impression in Venice in 2013. Careless Time, even more ambitious, is again a labyrinth, a Borges-style labyrinth with more narrations, with stories that intertwine with one another, and the repetition is a tool to obtain confusion and displacement. Gaza Mon Amour, the second movie by the Palestinian directors Tarzan and Arab Nasser, faces the living conditions and the desire of escape of a young Palestinian who lives in the Gaza Strip with the light tones of a social comedy. Among the interpreters, we also have the most important Palestinian actress, Hiam Abbas. Selva Tragica is the fourth feature film by the Mexican director Yulene Olaizola, a well-known director. Her previous movies, Fogo, took part in the Cannes of Cannes. Cannes was interested in this movie before they had to renounce. A fascinating visual movie developed with the support of the Cine Fondation of the Cannes Festival. After the success of Still Life, Umberto Pasolini took more than 7 years to complete his new film, Nowhere Special. It draws inspiration from a true story interpreted by James Norton, a father who has to find a new family for his 3-year-old son when he discovers he has just a few months of life left. A painful and intense movie. Listen is the first film by a young Portuguese director who comes from the London Film Institute of London, Ana Rocha de Souza. 75 minutes that reconstruct surgically the drama of two immigrant parents, Portuguese parents in London, who have their children taken away from social workers, from healthcare assistants, because they cannot provide food to them, and try to get them back. And then we have Yad Zanke, the producer of the first film, of the debut film by Jing Wang, The Best Is Yet to Come. It draws inspiration from the American models on investigation journalism. It tells about a real story of a young journalist that denounced the unfair law that discriminated journalists who had hepatitis B. And then we have a Kazakhstan director, Adilkan Yerzanov. He's well known in the international festival circuit. The new movie is a Yellow Cat, full of energy, inventions, with many references of a cinema lover. A comic movie located in the western landscape of the Kazakh steppe. This is the list of the movies in Orizzonti, and then we have the main competition, Venezia 77. I want to thank Carlos Reigadas, who has let me know this second movie by an Azerbaijan director, Haydal Baydarov, who is well known in the specialized festivals for his documentaries that escape any attempt to categorize them. His second fiction film, In Between Dying, doesn't look like any other film in contemporary mainstream cinema. It is lyric, poetic, and full of pathos. It will be a real surprise. Le Sorelle Macaluso by Emma Dante is the second film by the most important director in Italy for theater and lyric works. She had her debut in Venice in 2012 with her movie Via Castellana Bandiera. Her second movie is taken from her homonymous theater work. You find all the themes she likes: the family, violence in blood relationships, passing from theater to film. She reinvents the text, folding it to the needs of the cinema language. The World to Come is the second movie by Mona Fastfold, wife and collaborator of Brady Corbett. It is distributed by Sony. It is a story of two women who, at the end of the 19th century, live with their husbands in isolated houses some miles away from one another. And they fall in love with one another. The stress is on the details, the physical nature of homework for women, also turn to the present, although they tell a story of the past. A very nice movie. Nuevo Orden by Michael Franco is a film that develops in the near future, science fiction dystopic movie, very hard, hopeless, telling about many countries that are governed by totalitarian regimes. This is an extremely dark and ambitious movie by Michael Franco, with many literary references. As many of the French movies that were expected this year have been postponed, one of the few that has been completed is the new movie by Nicole Garcia, Amin, a thriller taken from a theater work written by Garcia and Jeanne Fieschi, interpreted by Stacy Martin, Bernard Magimel, and Pierre Niney. The story of a woman who meets an old lover of hers after she has married with a rich lawyer, a triangle very dangerous triangle. And then we have Amos Gitai, who is extremely loyal to the film festival in Venice. Laila in Haifa was shot in a night bar, which also has a contemporary art gallery nearby. It is attended by both Israelis and Palestinians in the most open city in Israel. It is a new chapter by this director that is stubbornly trying to tell how two peoples that are so divided can instead coexist and cohabit the same land. Andrei Konchalovsky is one of the greatest Russian directors in a generation that is losing all its members. He was in Venice 4 times in competition. He has won 3 Silver Lions. But he is still able to surprise us. He will surprise us this time with his movie, Dear Comrades, trying to tell a little-known episode in the Soviet history. The first strike in a factory in Novocherkassk, they were protesting for the hard working conditions and the lack of food, and their protest was repressed in blood by KGB. He had never been in Venice in competition, one of the most prolific and interesting Japanese directors, Kiyoshi Kurosawa. We welcome his movie in Venice this year, Wife of a Spy, a spy story between Kobe and the Chinese Manchuria, occupied by the Imperial Japanese Army. Fake tracks and unexpected coup de théâtre. Majid Majidi is for the first time in competition in Venice, although he is an important author for the Iranian cinema. Sun Children is the title of this 3rd Iranian movie at the festival this year. A multi-level work balancing between a realistic approach, analyzing the different living conditions of street children, and an adventurous story that brings us back to Oliver Twist by Dickens. We have to stress the extraordinary performance by the young interpreters. Cornel Mondruccio was in Cannes many times with his previous movies. Pieces of a Woman is his first film in competition in Venice and his first film in English, shot and interpreted by American actors, Vanessa Kirby, the protagonist of The World to Come, in Venice as well, Shia LaBeouf, Ellen Burstyn, and Molly Parker. I won't tell you anything about the story, not to spoiler it. It is a family drama, extremely powerful. The second of the 4 Italian movies in competition is Miss Marx by Susanna Nicchiarelli. After the international success of a previous movie, Nico, that won Orizzonti as best movie, Susanna is facing a new biopic shot in English and telling the story of the younger daughter of Marx, a politically intelligent woman, one of the first women in history to put together feminism and socialism. She is a great talent of Italian female cinema. Carlo Noce is the 3rd Italian movie in competition. It is produced by Pierfrancesco Favino, who is also the main character. Padre Nostro is drawing inspiration from real events, 1970s, the years of communist terrorism, seen through the eyes and the fantasy of a child who discovers his fear for a violent adult world. And then we have the new work by Gianfranco Rosi, Notturno, the result of 2 years of exploration in one of the most dangerous countries in the world, Syria, where a harsh war is being fought. I will not anticipate anything. You should not expect images of clashes, deaths, and destruction you can find in the documentaries that you see from that disfigured world. Rossi is instead interested in the devastation that remains in the individual world. He raises his aesthetic ambition, looking for a cinematographic language that is pure and essential. From Poland, we have a new movie by Malgorzata Sumszowska. She won the Silver Bear in Berlin 2 years ago with Mag, and she was a member of the jury in Venice the same year. She co-directed the movie with Michael Engeld, Never Gonna Snow Again, an enigmatic title with this figure of a message, of a professional of messages who visits his customers, his clients, in a compound of small villas, all alike one another. Chaitanya Tamhane brings from India his second film, The Disciple. You will certainly remember his debut film, Core, that won in Venice the award for the best film in Orizzonti and the Golden Lion for the Future as the best debut film in 2014. And then Alfonso Cuarón took him with himself for his movie Roma. He was his tutor for 2 years. It is a tragic reflection on art and failure, looking for absolute perfection, a challenge that has Indian classical music at the center, hypnotic music that is threatened by the vulgarity of the present times, where there is no place for the traditional culture. 40 years after Anni di Piombo by Margaret von Trotta, we have another German movie that faces the theme of political radicalism in Germany. And Tomorrow, Then Entire World by Julia von Heinz tells the story of a group of young people who became member of Antifa and are planning to react with violence to neo-Nazi violences. This movie brings us back to a political cinema that is passionate and necessary. From Bosnia, we have Quo Vadis, Aida, the new movie by Jasmila Cpanic, Golden Bear in Berlin in 2006 for her first film, Il segreto di Esma. In the 25th anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide, when more than 8,000 Muslim people from Bosnia were massacred by the Serbian troops led by Mladic, General Mladic, Jasmila reconstructs the events of those days with a surgical precision. The last title for the competition this year, Nomadland by Chloe Zhao, is one of the most expected films today. It is the third film by this American director that was born in Beijing. Nomadland is the story of a journey in an unknown world. Most of us ignore the existence of these new nomads in the U.S., a guide to survival that has a particular meaning in this time of isolation due to the pandemic. The interpreter is Frances McDormand, and the cast is mostly made of people interpreting themselves. This movie helps us to understand values like mutual solidarity and the strong sense of community that can save you from loneliness, from failure and despair. I am not surprised that this film is considered one of the possible Oscar winner for this year. This is the end of the list of invited movies. We might add some more movies in the next few days. A first communication about the Venice production bridge, our co-production market. Good news, most of its activities will take place as usual at the third floor of the Hotel Excelsior. Only Final Cut in Venice, the special program to support post-production for African movies, African and Arab movies, only Final Cut in Venice, and market screenings will be moved online on the Festival Scope platform that has been our partner for a number of years in this type of initiative. A second communication for the Venice VR Expanded, the fourth edition of this section. It will be held in the Lazzaretto Island. As you can easily imagine, however, it will not take place in Lazzaretto Island as usual. Instead, it will be held online. In order to have access to the digital platform, there will be some indications that will be published in the next few days. This section is supported by HTC Viveport, Oculus TV, VR Chat, and VR Room. Having this section online provides us with the possibility of having an even wider access for the professional and the viewers without having to physically move to Venice, but without any limitation in the vision, because the quality of the experience is individual. It depends on the technology you are equipped with. I can conclude by thanking, first of all, President Roberto Cicutto, the General Manager Andrea Del Mercato, the Vice Director and the person in charge of ASAC, Deborah Rossi, Paolo Lughi, the press office, the cinema office at large, Silvia Menegazzi, Daniela Persi, Alessandro Mezzalira, Maria Chiara Manci, Giulia Carbone, Valentina Bellomo. I apologize for not listing all of them. They all have my sincere gratitude. And then Pascal Dio, Salvina Neirotti, Michelle Reyal, Clarice Rosenthal, Jane Williams. Last but not least, as Americans say, I want to thank my collaborator, Angela Savoldi, and the colleagues that have shared with me the pleasure and sometimes the suffering of the selection stage: Giulia Dagnolo Vallan, Bruno Fornara, Mauro Gervasini, Oscar Larussi, Angela Prudenzi, Emanuele Arauco, Marina Sanna. Allow me to also thank Alessandra Speciale, Gianluca Arnone, Francesco Giaivia, Angela Bosetto, Mohamed Atterbar, Violetta Bava, Paolo Bertolini, Elena Pollacchi, Enrico Vannucci, who were my eyes and my ambassadors in those countries where I had not the possibility of going in person. This is all I had to say. Thank you all. We wait for you in Venice at the beginning of September.